Good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It is really a pleasure to welcome you to this exciting plenary session as part of the 10th World Strategic Forum, hosted by the International Economic Forum of the Americas, Mastering the Economic Revival, as we've heard. My name is Laurie Kerr, and I'm the CEO of FinDev Canada, Canada's development finance institution, supporting private investment and business growth in emerging markets. I am particularly excited to be moderating this panel since it focuses on a key area of importance to FinDev Canada, as well as to many governments, to many organizations and investors around the globe, that of women's economic empowerment and of women entrepreneurs. So as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had serious effects on the availability of capital across all markets, and access to capital has been particularly hard hit by women. And that women may lose the commercial and economic progress over the last decades is challenging at best and potentially devastating across many fronts. So with that context, we're having this conversation today to talk about the role of banks and other organizations, how they can and are contributing to recovery with supporting women-led enterprises. What are the various approaches that banks and other initiatives are taking to benefit women? Women as business owners, women as leaders, and women as employees. So with that context, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed panel. And again, an equally warm welcome to all of you who are joining us either online or in person in Miami. For our panel today, we're joined by Mr. Stalin Munoz, who is the Managing Director at Coprogreso in Ecuador. We're also joined by Vicky Saunders, the CEO, the founder of SheEO. And finally, we're joined by Pamela Fuertes Berti. Pamela is the Executive Director of Goldman Sachs's 10,000 Small Business Program and joins us in person in Miami. So welcome, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to have you here. So to get things started, just to kick off, it would be really great to hear from each of our panelists a bit about themselves and their organizations. Nobody can do a just introduction like themselves. So it would be really great to get a 2-minute primer from each of you. So first, I'll hand it over to Stalin. Bienvenido. Welcome to the panel. Would you tell us a little bit about Coprogreso and why you're excited to be joining this conversation today?
Muchas gracias, Laurie.
Thank you very much, Laurie, and thank you to all of you. As you have mentioned, my name is Stalin Munoz. Coprogreso is an organization that was born 52 years ago in a small town in Ecuador. According to the last census, it barely has 2,000 in population. The first partner was a woman. Out of 32 people that started this beautiful dream with barely.
Thank you so much for describing a little bit about Coprogreso for us. Thank you so much. Vicky, maybe I'll turn to you. You have created this really incredible organization, SheEO. We would love to hear more about it and the role it plays to help women entrepreneurs.
Thanks so much, Laurie. Hi, everybody. I'm Vicky Saunders, and so many things are coming to my mind right now. The state of the world, women in it, women entrepreneurs, it's so challenging. And so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life and really struggled in the journey with getting financing. I've literally had every kind of funding there is out there, from grants to equity to loans, friends and family, right through to taking a company public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and had a real sort of like inside track on what are all the barriers that women entrepreneurs face. And, I started 5 companies and launched them. And then I thought, I could just keep doing this for the rest of my life, or I could get underneath this big issue of accessing finance and support for women entrepreneurs. So SheEO is a radical redesign of the way the world looks right now. I was like, if you were going to start all over again, you would not do it the way it is. And so we stepped back and we leveraged all these assets that women entrepreneurs have and women have as funders. And we looked at a very relationship-oriented ecosystem approach. So the way it works is we crowdfund capital from hundreds of women in each country. This model is country specific. We've expanded it to 5 countries. So hundreds of women come together. They contribute a small amount of capital. It's pooled together. And then it's loaned out to entrepreneurs who apply, majority woman-owned, woman-led, revenue generating between 50K and 2 million in revenue, sort of early stage. And they get 0% interest loans, 5 years, 0% interest loan from us. But the big thing they get is access to all of us to help them grow their business as customers, as advisors, as network influencers, using our power with them to create the kind of change. And every one of these ventures that we support are working on what we call the world's to-do list, our sort of short language for the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's been a fascinating experiment. We have 100% payback rates on our loans. And it's like moving from this world of scarcity where you don't think you have enough and there are all these barriers to a place where hundreds and now thousands of women are on your team globally wanting to help you export. So it started in Canada, and we're really thrilled to be here today to talk about this model and to talk about what else we can do to create the conditions for women entrepreneurs to thrive.
Thank you so much, Vicki. The story behind SheEO is really quite inspiring. So congratulations for your work and spreading that around the globe. And we'll want to hear more about that in just a little while. But again, thank you so much. A great introduction. Now I'd like to turn to you, Pamela. The 10,000 Small Business Program is really quite amazing as well. I read the last report, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear more about the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I'm honored to join this wonderful panel. I think that this topic is so important and so timely. As we talk a little bit about post-COVID and the impacts in our economy, women-owned businesses have had a disproportionate impact because of COVID. And so it's my pleasure to join all of you today for the conversation. I'm Executive Director of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program at Miami-Dade College. We are a international economic development initiative, which is designed to help small businesses scale and grow their business. We are the location for this in the Southeast US, and Miami-Dade College is the host and the official academic partner for this program. We believe that one of the best ways that we can be of support to small business entrepreneurs is by facilitating access to entrepreneurship programs that help small business owners understand how to grow and position their companies for growth. Our program also believes that it's important to create a community of network, a strong network that is of support and that understands the needs of small businesses. And this is what our program does. And lastly, we believe that small business entrepreneurs know and understand their business, and there is no better representative to talk about what's important to small businesses from an advocacy standpoint than to having their voices at the table. And that's something that we've recently launched. So I'm very happy to join this panel today and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for sort of the orientation on the program for the audience. And with that great background on the 3 different panelists that we have here, I'd like to jump to the first question. Stalin, I'll direct this to you. But first, I'm delighted to share with everyone that CoProgresso and FinDev Canada are actually in a partnership, and CoProgresso is a client of FinDev Canada. We're pleased to be partnering with you in supporting women's economic empowerment in Ecuador and to support small and medium. With us today, Stalin, we're glad to include a focus on Latin America, which is certainly one of the regions of focus of FinDev Canada as well. So on to my question. So organizations have worked together on the objective we share of supporting women's economic empowerment. Leaving COVID-19 aside for just a moment, we'll definitely get to COVID-19 impacts. We've heard a little bit about it. Stalin, would you share with us what you see as differences in your portfolio related to enterprises owned by women and those owned by men? And in addition to that, one other quick question. I understand that you have created something called Círculo de Progreso, which predates COVID-19, but is certainly something that's even more important nowadays. What is it? Can you explain it to us? What is it, and how have you learned from that experience?
Experiencia.
As we're getting the technical issues straightened out, why don't I turn right to Pamela? Pamela, you talked about this amazing organization that you run, which is financed by Goldman Sachs. Again, this 10,000 small business program. Just to recap, your organization supports small businesses run by both men and women. But tell me, you touched upon a little bit in your opening remarks and describing the program. Can you talk a little bit more about what you have observed as the biggest impacts of COVID-19 on women-owned businesses? In your experience or from your observations of the program, how have women businesses pivoted or evolved their business operations to survive during the pandemic?
Of course, thank you. And that's a great question, because I think that the best way to describe the past 18, 19 months is that women entrepreneurs have undergone tremendous growth. It's been a very challenging time, but many have proven to themselves and to their communities and to their employees that they are resilient. And so I think that first it's important to note that in the US alone, there are 12...
Hola, les quiero pedir disculpas, no sé si se me escucha allí.
Vamos a dejar hablar a este señor entonces. We're going to let this gentleman speak from Ecuador, I guess, unless our moderator indicates otherwise. Okay, so just to recap really quickly, there are 12 million women-owned businesses in the United States. And when we talk about the economic impact of these 12 million businesses, it's $3 trillion. That's the economic impact. Imagine how much greater that impact could be if we were to further support women-owned businesses. And so going back to your initial question, we recently did a check-in, a survey with the women owners, small business owners of our program. And what we found was that 67% of them reported that by far the biggest impact they had was financial. All of them reported a loss in revenues. A close second to that, 56%, reported that their second biggest impact had been in managing their business while running their households. In other words, all of the effects that came from having to take care of the family while running the business, while running the virtual school programs for their kids, while accommodating their employees and accommodating their employees' needs related to COVID, whether it was family-related, health-related, mental health-related, or otherwise. What we're inspired by is how encouraged, notwithstanding these challenges, women business owners remain. Many of them have said that they have had to pivot. Many of them have adopted digital media strategies that they had never really considered before, or that they had never really prioritized before. So what they found was that, hey, instead of putting aside that strategic plan to help me understand what my digital marketing strategy should be, or to invest in technology, or to invest in my employees, the moment to reassess and re-gauge their strategies, their growth strategies for their business came about thanks to the pandemic. So many of them are appreciative actually of this moment where they were able to reassess what their needs were and how they needed to position their company for continued growth. A good number, about 50% of our small business participants said, you know what, we found the power of the network by talking to other entrepreneurs, by talking to business advisors, and by talking to others that really truly understand the needs of our businesses. So thanks to this, we're inspired by them and we're further committed to helping them continue to grow. One glaring statistic that came about was that about 34% reported a decrease in their confidence level. Women found that it was challenging times and their confidence level to run their business and lead their business was impacted by the pandemic. But what they found was that, once again, they resorted back to their network and communities and found strength within. So we're really encouraged and we're looking forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. It sounds like there's a lot of really inspiring small businesses and women-owned businesses in your network, and the opportunities that they've sought. They've certainly, COVID is certainly a challenge, but aspiring through those opportunities and pivoting and experiencing growth, and the power of the network, I think, is really instructive for all of us. And speaking of the power of the network, I wanted to turn to you, Vicki. even though your organization works with women entrepreneurs worldwide. As a fellow Canadian, what have you seen or heard or interpreted across your membership of the impact of COVID-19 on Canadian women business owners that may be the same or may be different than what we've been hearing sort of more worldwide? And I'd also be really interested in picking up on some of the great comments from Pamela vis-a-vis the care economy and the additional responsibilities that women traditionally have vis-a-vis the sort of the care economy and how that's factoring into impact. So would love to hear from you on that.
Sure. Yeah. More of the same. Yes, Pamela. Yes. Just a take off a zero for Canada compared to the US, just a smaller country. But certainly before COVID, women were less resourced, raise less money, and are running smaller businesses than men in general out there. And so being under-resourced and going into COVID really hurts, right? So they were definitely hurt more. Investors during this time really doubled down on existing portfolios and existing deals they had. So we definitely saw a retrenchment. There was an 80% reduction in financing going out to women entrepreneurs in the first 12 months of COVID. So pretty painful. A lot of the sort of the advancements that we'd made were pulled back. The care burden is real and extremely challenging. Any of our founders, and I mean, we have a very large network of women in business, and many of them that just had to take on all this extra care burden at home found it absolutely exhausting, really stressful. Part of the challenge that happens when you're in a bit of a crisis like this and just trying to manage your day-to-day is you sort of hunker down even more and isolate yourself even more, which can be really challenging. We are already very much conditioned to not ask for help and not reach out. And so that had just an outsized impact on those who just couldn't find the bandwidth to reach out to others. We saw, of course, an awful lot of pivoting going on in community, and similar to Pamela, maybe just an example, a story. We have a founder in British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada, who had the first zero waste grocery store in North America. Really interesting business model. But everything she was doing, she had 200 suppliers servicing this grocery store in the Vancouver mainland area, and didn't have an online sales process before COVID. And very quickly in our community, activators reached out, the women who contribute capital, and said, we'd love to help you go online. They helped her spin up a Shopify store very quickly. She spent an awful lot of time building out technology for the 200 local farmers and suppliers for her store. And interestingly, other grocery stores that were experiencing deep supply chain issues because they've scaled up and they have like the one supplier for raspberries, Driscoll's in California, and couldn't get their raspberries, would see a break in their supply chain, whereas she's scaled out locally. And so it's actually much more resilient. And the technology that she's built is now something that grocery stores across Canada are looking at because she's found a way for the scaling out instead of scaling up. And so the supply chain disruption has just been really fascinating to observe. And in a way, it's almost like a competitive advantage for some of these folks that were smaller and more locally rooted because they didn't see a lot of disruption. So we're seeing a lot of innovation in this space. And so, I always get asked, is it better or worse for women? And my answer is yes. It's all of the things. But I'm quite excited about what this has started unlocked as potential, as well as it's been really challenging. So.
Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing this story. That's really insightful. And I think it echoes of some of the things that we're seeing at FinDev Canada as we're working on a particular program that we have in Western Africa, that we see also women entrepreneurs pivoting, like incorporating digital strategies and looking at businesses in a way that they hadn't before. I'd like to come back to you in just a moment, but Pamela, can you maybe share with us the type of support that your organization, the program, provides to women entrepreneurs or to small businesses? Has it changed over sort of with COVID? Has it sort of changed over the last sort of 18 months, or certain services, they remain in demand, or certain types of support? So I'd love to hear from you, Pamela. And actually the same question back to you, Vicky, as the nature of the support that SheEO provides to women in the network? Has it changed because of COVID? So Pamela, first to you.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So in terms of the three components of our program, number one, the entrepreneurship program. That's a 3-month intensive business leadership entrepreneurship program. The curriculum to that is designed by Babson College, and quite frankly, it's very soundly and perfectly designed. And that curriculum has been delivered in person. When COVID hit, we transitioned to virtual delivery, just given the circumstances. We are now looking at the possibility of returning back to in-person delivery, but the program in and of itself, the business leadership courses, the entrepreneurship program, that has not changed, nor has our approach and overall pedagogy, if you will. That remains the same. What has shifted a little bit is our network, our alumni network. We have added other programming to help support the existing businesses, the businesses that have already participated in our program, to be actively engaged in programs, conferences, workshops that are relevant to them. Right now, one of the most important topics, and I know it's been shared throughout this conference, is the future of work. How can I, as a business leader, best support my team? How can I position my team for growth while we're undergoing this challenging time? So that's a topic that we are spending a little bit more time on, and sharing with them what some of the best practices are, what some of the best principles are, and helping them as they gauge how they manage and they lead their teams during this period of transition. Lastly, one other, it's not a change, but an addition, if you will, is our advocacy component. And this is something that I think is wonderful. We launched it in April of last year, just right after COVID. And one of the things that we thought was, you know what? This is the time to encourage small business owners to speak, to share their voice, to talk about what's important to them. So while perhaps it's access to funding, that's a given. That's every small business owner is always talking about, or many small business owners are talking about, how can I make sure that I have access to funding? That's one topic that we're talking about. How can we talk about public policy measures, whether it's small business tax or extensions to relief programs that have been enacted by different groups and different programs, different governments throughout the globe? And so those are all topics that we're looking at, and we're really looking forward to intensifying our advocacy efforts, because what we've seen so far is a very positive response. We're moving the needle. We're having virtual fly-ins, if you will, with members of the local, federal, and state offices throughout the United States, and it's really wonderful to see how that community is coming together and how there is a need. There's a lot of offices are coming to us and saying, how can we best support small businesses? What else can we do? And within that, many are saying, how can we support women-owned businesses? How can we support minority-owned businesses? And so I think that there's been a greater level of consciousness that has really propelled us forward. For us as a program and as a community, we believe in the power of our community. We believe South Florida is one of the most exciting places to be. Economically, we continue to grow and we're resilient, and we're a diverse community. A diverse community that has communities from the Caribbean, from Europe, from Latin America, from South America, Canada, and other places. And so we're really inspired to see further localization, if you will, and further engagement with our community. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. And it's really interesting to hear about the evolution of the program and the impact during these COVID times. Back to you, Vicki. How has the interaction and the support that your network provides to women entrepreneurs, how has it sort of pivoted or changed because of COVID, the types of support?
Well, we were actually doing Zoom calls prior to COVID. So we had been doing some stuff virtually. But now, I mean, it's a bit of a dream state for me. I was 2 weeks a month on a plane, events all over the world. I'm like, Zoom, I'm loving Zoom. I just have to say, I know it's not a popular point of view at the moment, but I love it. And so one of the first things that happened as soon as COVID hit is we immediately started to triage who needed help the most. We have 107 ventures in our portfolio. and then thousands of other community members who were part of this. And we just did a quick red, yellow, green, who's in trouble, who needs support, how can we support? And being in a community at a time like this is just incredible. It's all hands on deck to support. So we saw a lot of loans, people sharing employees. I don't want to lay anyone off during this time if someone needs extra staff. So those who are scaling up, we're helping those who had less resources and needed more time to breathe. We had, loan deferrals if it was needed in the short term for people. And so we're called, our whole practice is radical generosity. So the radically generous thing to do when it's tough for people is to give them breathing space. So a lot more flexibility, certainly in what our programming had looked like. And then we just really witnessed our community get very activist with one another, using their power with folks in the community to create, remove obstacles. It's one of my favorite things to do is the remover of all obstacles rule. Just really trying to help people negotiate, a lot of things that don't happen in certain times. You think, I need to do something to negotiate my rent if I'm not going to be in that space. And my business is shut down for a little while. And so we used a lot of our different skills to support folks reducing costs and expenses that businesses had in the short term. And then, some of the amazing things that started to happen is because we operate in multiple different countries, we started to invite in activators from all different countries. Just pick the time zone that's closest to you and don't wait till we come to your country, people who really wanted to help. And so we've started to do virtual trade missions monthly. And so Canadian ventures and activators traveled to the New Zealand call this week. We're doing 5 calls a week in each of our different countries. And that's been really fascinating to build relationships in this virtual time. And so it's what might have precluded you from being able to participate in some of these trade missions previously are now just a lot easier to access virtually. And so we're seeing more participation from ventures that are wanting to grow their businesses and being able to access some of those resources. And then just to add on to what Pamela talked about earlier, one of the best things that sort of come out through the Black Lives Matter movement and other initiatives and other issues is this very big focus on supporting Black, Indigenous people of color. And so in our community has been very focused on this for many years. And so about 45% of our portfolio is Black, Indigenous women of color. 11% of our founders are Indigenous. And so we have this practice of economic reconciliation in our community, really paying attention to those who have been put to the margins and wanting to support them. So there's a lot of goodness and a lot of focus around the equitable, creating more equitable systems. I think COVID has really revealed the inequities that exist. People are talking about systems transformation, talking about systemic barriers, not just, if you didn't get in there, what's wrong with you? The sort of self-interest mindset of the past. Hopefully it's the past. So a lot of focus on really trying to remove and get to the root level.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. It's really interesting to sort of hear how when many organizations are struggling because of COVID, both your organization as well as the 10,000 Small Business Program, it's actually kind of a rallying cry for you, and you're really kind of firming up and looking to provide even more targeted support. So it's really great and really useful. I think Senor Munoz is still having problems connecting in, which is a shame because this could have been an even richer conversation from the point of a local financial institution. However, I have another question or two for both of you to continue. So I've really enjoyed the experiences and the perspective that you've shared on your organization's experiences in supporting women's entrepreneurship. And I wanted to, we've been talking sort of a lot about the sort of the past and where the organizations and initiatives have come from and dealing with COVID. And I wanted to kind of look forward, if you will, hoping that in some of the markets anyways, we're starting to at least pull through a little bit more of COVID, even though everybody's been very hard hit. I guess my last question would be, what gives you reason for hope for the recovery vis-a-vis women-owned businesses? So that's sort of part A. And the second part of the question is, where do you think your organization will go next? sort of a doubling down on the support that you provide, or incorporating something new that focuses on women? So maybe Pamela, we can start with you. 2 questions. What gives you hope for the recovery and women-owned businesses? And then where do you think your organization will go in the future?
Thank you. Well, I think that what gives me hope, quite frankly, is when I go out and meet with the small business entrepreneurs. Whether it's a women-owned business or not, this is really, truly what gives me hope. And one common theme that comes about all the time, and I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure, is that a lot of these companies are saying, we get it. We take our charge, we love our businesses, we love our employees, but for us, it's about purpose beyond profit. Purpose beyond profit. And so I think that the fact that there's a level of social impact in what our businesses are doing, I think is wonderful and makes our work so much richer, because it's all about connecting, right? And it's all about connecting communities, and it's all about helping support each other. And so I'm really inspired by this, and we continue to see that that level of consciousness among our small business community. Second, I think that back to your second question is, I think that what we're going to see certainly for us is we're committed to being a resource in the community, whether it's in Miami or in any of our other sites throughout the country, and in the UK and in France, where we're also located. We will continue to be a resource for small businesses that wish to continue to grow their business. Growth-oriented is the theme. And I think that one of the things that we're going to continue doing, and this is a charge by our president of Miami-Dade College, is really being further engaged in the community and pushing representation. It's so important for small businesses to see other small business entrepreneurs that succeed. It's so important for students that are in entrepreneurship or finance or technology or whatever industry to see that there are others that went through where they are and are successful. It's important to hold conferences like these that have these important conversations that maybe some people say, why are we talking about this exactly? How does this connect to the bottom line? The bottom line is much more than what we thought it was. And so I think that that's something that we will continue to do. That's something that we're charged with at Miami-Dade College, and it's at the center of what our program is about, being active in the community. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Wonderful. Vicki, over to you. Same question.
I'm also just a little bit like this like clapping track. I'm like, oh, real people in a real room. Hi, everybody. We wish we were there.
You have a full room of folks clapping for you, Vicki. So
nice. So I'm extremely hopeful and optimistic about where things are going in a way, despite like all the data feeling like we're going backwards. I mean, we're just witnessing, only 2% of capital globally goes to 51% of the population. It's just so crazy. But we're seeing lots of breakthrough ideas and initiatives coming along. And one of the things that I get a lot of hope from is I look at the portfolio of ventures that we've supported to date, and the kinds of businesses that our community is supporting. If women are investing their money for the kind of economy and world we want, it would look much different than the one we're living in right now. We are picking all of these very high social impact ventures that are also profitable, but the focus is really on the major challenges we're facing, the world's to-do list. We have multiple concurrent strategies or current challenges going on everywhere. Every headline when you wake up in the morning, if you can stomach reading it, just all the challenges that we're facing. And to see so many innovations out there to tackle these challenges, not just to monetize and make more money and accumulate more, is really fascinating. I think we want to move to a both and kind of world, not an either or that we've been stuck in. And so I see huge possibilities there. I just get very excited about it. The largest wealth transfer in history is coming into the hands of women. We have capital to invest like we haven't before, and we're just very encouraged by what we're seeing. Also witnessing the emergence of the caring economy and really looking at what is needed in society and the kinds of businesses that are coming up, all kinds of new revenue models. We see this phenomenal company called gotcare.ca, where they're delivering home healthcare at 30% cheaper and paying the healthcare workers 30% more through this new technology, Uber for home healthcare. Like, just really interesting kinds of business models coming up led by women. And so we're thrilled to see that. In terms of our organization, we are here for systems transformation. It's great that, we're funding X number of ventures per year that are led by women and non-binary folk. But the real difference is going to happen when we actually show another way is possible and start to get these larger institutions to shift their policies and to shift their behaviors. And so in a pretty short period of time, we've been in operation for 6 years. We just witnessed a major bank in Canada match our terms, 0% interest loans with no collateral. So BMO came to us this year and they matched because they're like, it's incredible that we get better payback rates in the banks, and the growth rates of our ventures are higher than their peers. And so this bank came to us and just said, we're unable to actually get the capital out the door at this check size, about $100,000 checks, the way that you're doing it with our risk lens. And so a lot of the women at BMO have become activators or involved in our community and have witnessed this different way of doing things in a high trust manner, but in this ecosystem-based approach. And so that to me was like a very positive signal of where things are going. And as soon as I had a 3-page agreement from a charter, like a major bank in Canada, we sent that out to every other country and said, okay, there's a precedent. It's been done. You can do it too. And so 0% interest loans are a thing. They're not as weird as they were 6 years ago. And starting to, get better terms of capital with better process in non-collateralized ways out to women entrepreneurs is going to make a massive difference. So we want to see more of that and more systems transformation as we go out and show that, we're almost incarcerated in this way in our minds that there's only one way to do things. And so we want to do more demonstration as an organization that it's possible to do things differently and get better results. So I'm excited for what's coming.
Wow. Bravo. This has been an incredible conversation. So Vicki and Pamela, both of you, I'd really like to thank you for sharing your incredible insights and sharing your views today. Again, this has been such an excellent conversation. I'm sure our audience, both online and in Miami, have taken as much away from this as I have, both learning about your incredible organizations, as well as yourselves. You're both incredible women in your own right. So thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully in our next conversation, we'll be able to have Senior Lunos join us and we can take the conversation one step forward. So with that, I wish a wonderful afternoon to you, Vicki, and to you, Pamela. Thank you so much. Special thank you to the audience, whether you joined us in person or online. Thank you very much. And of course, a thank you to our organizers, the International Economic Forum of the Americas and the World Strategic Forum, for enabling this conversation today. What a great panel session. So please join me in thanking everyone. I guess applause if you're in Miami and virtual applause if you're online. So thank you both so much. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you today.